Greetings. Welcome again to Print Purana. I want to talk today about globalization in antiquity. It was the middle of the first century of the Common Era, and in the prosperous city of Rome, the capital of the great Roman Empire, a brilliant intellectual was writing a book which he called Natural History. His name was Pliny, often called Pliny the Elder. He comments on Rome's blooming trade with India, deploring two of its adverse effects. Indians loved Mediterranean red coral so much, Pliny complains, that coral had become scarce in the land of its origin. And Roman ladies loved Indian pearls and fine textiles so much that to pay for them, much of Rome's gold found its way to India. So dearly do we pay for our women and our luxuries, Pliny exclaimed. Recent historical and archaeological studies have revealed the enormous volume and value of ancient Indo-Roman maritime trade via the Red Sea. The writer and historian William Dalrymple summarizes some of the conclusions of these recent studies. And I quote, "Custom taxes raised on the trade coming through the Red Sea would have covered around 1/3 of the funds that the Roman Empire required to administer its global conquests and maintain its vast legions," unquote. It is clear that Roman trade with India far surpassed the much heralded trade with China via the Silk Route. Dalrymple notes, and I quote, "Contrary to popular ideas about the overland Silk Roads, it is now clear that historians have been looking at entirely the wrong place when they thought about ancient trade routes. It was India, not China, that was the greatest trading partner of the Roman Empire," unquote. Globalization is not a uniquely modern phenomenon. Variants of it are found in every period of history. Indian and Arab traders became skilled at using the monsoon winds to navigate the Indian Ocean and to bring large ships laden with goods into Indian and West Asian ports. Trade with the Roman Empire began around the 2nd century before the Common Era and reached its peak in the 1st century of the Common Era. At about the same time as Pliny was writing in Rome, another brilliant intellectual called Kautilya was writing his magnum opus, the Arthashastra, somewhere in northern India. It has been called the most precious work in the whole range of Sanskrit literature and provides a glimpse into international trade from the Indian side. Kautilya gives a bureaucratic description of international trade and its legal underpinnings. While outlining the duties of the superintendent of the treasury, called the kosher adhyaksha, he lists 9 categories of precious commodities deposited in the treasury. They are pearls, gems, diamonds, coral, sandalwood, aloe, incense, skins and furs, and cloth. Names of different varieties of these commodities are toponyms derived from their places of origin, much like today's Bordeaux wine or Ceylon tea. These places were far from Kautilyan home territory and often located overseas. Though it is often difficult to identify place names of pearls, they were located mostly in the southern regions of the subcontinent, as well as overseas, such as Sri Lanka. Kautilya notes the 2 major trade routes, the northern and the southern. The northern route is said to include merchandise such as elephants, horses, perfumes, ivory, antelope skins, silver, and gold, while the southern had an abundance of conch shells, diamonds, gems, pearls, and gold. Red ornamental coral is another precious commodity that, as Pliny noted, came from the Mediterranean region. Two kinds are noted. Alakanda, which is associated with Alexandria in Egypt, the transportation hub of the Mediterranean trade, and Vivarna, identified by commentators with the Greeks, possibly the Persian Gulf or the Mediterranean. Precious woods, such as sandalwood, aloe, and incense, were brought from South India, including Sri Lanka, and the northeastern regions of the subcontinent, including Assam and Myanmar. The provenance of clothes and blankets and furs were regions even far afield. Kautilya speaks of blankets from Nepal, furs from the northwestern countries such as today's Iran, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, and cloth from Bengal and China, from which were imported silk called China Patta. Liquor and salt were lucrative state monopolies. Some varieties were imported. A liquor called Kapishayana, for example, originated probably from the Kabul region of Afghanistan. Grape wine likewise was imported. Some probably came from the northwestern regions where grape wines grow, while Roman wine amphora have been excavated in southern Indian ports such as Arikamedu. A major area of international trade in antiquity related to military equipment. The ancient equivalents of today's tanks and armored personal carriers were the war elephant and the war horse. One article in the peace treaty between Chandragupta Maurya and Seleucus Nicator around 303 before the Common Era was the transfer of 500 war elephants to Seleucus. Several regions of India produced the best fighting elephants, and the armies of the Western countries had to import them from India. On the other hand, India did not breed good horses. The best horses had to be imported from the northwest, what is today Iran, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. Think of the colorful horse trader in Kipling's Kim. As Professor Thomas Troutman has admirably demonstrated in his superb book, Elephants and Kings, An Environmental History, there was an interesting bilateral trade arrangement with horses going from west to east and elephants going from east to west. This was one of the most interesting and longest lasting examples of ancient Indian international trade. Control of this trade, as it crisscrossed northern India, was lucrative to a king, both economically and militarily. International trade does not happen on its own, though. It requires an infrastructure, such as a secure maritime and overland routes, security for traders within the countries where they carry out their trade, and a fair legal system so that traders are not subjected to unjust lawsuits. Caravans, according to Kautilya, entered the kingdom and stopped at frontier posts, and their contents were examined and catalogued. Then the packages were sealed with the king's stamp. Within the kingdom, the caravans were given a military escort for the payment of a levy. They were expected to go directly to the customs house located outside the main gate of the king's capital city or fort. Smuggling and attempts to avoid duties were as prevalent then as it is now, and Kautilya instructs the superintendent of customs to be alert to all the stunts foreign traders may try to pull off. Kautilya has detailed rules about customs duty, but the general rule was that import was taxed at 20%, which is similar to the 25% levied by Rome on imported goods, according to the Mysiris Papyrus. Foreign importers were not permitted to enter the local retail trade. At the customs house, their goods were sold or auctioned to local retail traders. The Arthashastra also provides us with valuable information on financing, without which long-distance trade would have been impossible. Interest rates varied depending on the risk borne by the lender, 5% for commercial loans, 10% for traders traveling through wild tracts, and 20% for maritime trade. Kautilya's world, at least the world from which the goods known to Kautilya came, extended from Nepal and China in the north to Assam, Bengal, Orissa, and Myanmar in the east, to Sri Lanka, Tamil Nadu, and Kerala in the south, and to Afghanistan, Persia, and the Mediterranean region in the west. Together, these regions constituted much of the then known world. Thank you.